Hey y'all. So today I'm going to be adding a new facet to my YouTube channel. This is going to go on the Pussy Church playlist, and it is going to be called Tit Talk. And Tit Talk is going to be the outlet in which I share some of the things that are really close to heart, hence the words tit, because. And like the things that really matter to my heart and my emotional processing and talking about it in a safe space where other women might be able to relate and work through their own stuff as they listen and maybe receive little nuggets from my own emotional processing. However, it's just mainly for me to get off my chest what has um, been part of my life and my shadow work. And so today, for the first episode or video of TikTok. Also here it's not gonna be as polished and channeled as some of my other stuff. This is gonna be more raw, real me from here. So it'll be more like stream of conscious and not as organized. So my first thing that I want to talk about here on TikTok today is going to be about self-made family. I've chosen to talk about self-made family because Chiron retrograde has finally ended and the holidays have also come to an end. And I've been in the midst of like a bunch of transformation. And last year, um, my astrology report, I pay for a yearly astrology report from Moon Omens. They tend to be very helpful for helping me navigate the year. Last year, I had talked about how those that I consider family, especially siblings, were going to come into play throughout the year. Um, and I'd be really called to learn how to cope and regulate um, as I navigate the dynamics of those relationships with those who I call soul siblings. And I thought it was really interesting. It caught my attention as soon as I saw it back in January, which of course it would catch my attention because I tend to be hyper vigilant and I have a very disorganized attachment style. And I've been working a long time to um, become less hypervigilant and more regulated and grounded and centered in self and more secure in the attachments that I have in my life. And so, in the midst of Chiron retrograde, which Chiron tends to be like a planet that I've been very focused on this last couple of years. And Chiron is the planet, they call it the wounded healer planet, but to me, it's just basically the planet of like your life wound, like the wound your soul chose to transcend or attempt to transcend in this life. And I find it really empowering to know about Chiron because if you know this is your life wound, you start to begin to understand why certain patterns keep like presenting themselves all the time. And it makes it easier to not take it so personal and hold on to these patterns. And so for me, my Chiron is in the placement of Cancer, which Cancer is the wound of abandonment. And for some, this might be family abandonment. For others, this might be like self-abandonment that runs really, really deep, maybe like enmeshed family dynamics. For others, this might be like abandonment of like friends always abandoning you. In my life, my Chiron has been the wound of family abandonment. I have um, the childhood history of being raised by my grandmother, who was a single grandparent, and my biological mom would come and go and leave all the time with my younger brothers. And then eventually they got signed away for adoption. She got married, moved away. And then I didn't meet my dad until I was about 23. My throat chakra is acting up as I talk about this. Um, and so, and then when I met my dad, um, we had a falling out within 9 months of like knowing each other. And I fell deeply in love with my siblings that he and my stepmom had together. And then that all disappeared because they made sure that I wasn't really allowed to be part of my siblings' lives. And that festered for a long time within me. I really loved those little children who are now little adults, and I still have not been allowed any contact with them whatsoever. And so mine's like the wound of family abandonment. And so over the years, I have moved quite a bit. Very gypsy spirited, also have gypsy ancestry. So maybe gypsy epigenetics, which that's like being forced out of your home and being forced to abandon your home, right? If you were a gypsy in another life. And so in each state that I've moved to, I've lived in Texas, Missouri, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, and now I live in Florida. In each state that I've lived in, I've always kind of cultivated and curated a self-made family. And some of that family has become kind of estranged, just like my real family. And some of it has become very tight-knit and like very secure attachments, right? And this year, the ones that are some of my most secure attachments would be my soul brother and my soul sister, which one lives in Singapore and one lives in New Mexico. And yeah, I knew when I read that astrology report that it was talking about them, and it like made my inner child very anxious. And then all was well throughout the year. And then my soul brother, um, we got in a huge fight, like I think like 3 months ago, 4 months ago, maybe at this point. Um, and it was really, really painful for me because both of us have pride to work through. And I did so much grounding so that way I could let go of that pride and maintain and keep that relationship. And I was so hurt because um he just blatantly disrespected me, and he got so hung up on his own trigger words that it was really difficult for things to resolve. And eventually, after doing a ton of grounding, a ton of meditating, a ton of really hardcore self-care for myself, and then preparing to move, we were able to work through it. However, it activated so much grief and pain that I had related to my brothers on my biological mother's side, because my brothers on my biological mother's side, they're so quick to shame me, they're so quick to guilt me, they're so quick to blame me, like I am their scapegoat. And they love coming to me for that nurturing, feminine, motherly energy. But then if I hold them accountable for something that is making me upset or hurt, they just block me and disappear. And um, I have a history of having angry outbursts where like I will just lash out with words, like from when I was a teenager. I'll just lash out with words and like stab a person with words. Like I can sense into them and just hit them in like the lowest spots, right? And so over the years, I've really um, preferred to communicate through email or text. Like anybody that truly knows me knows my preferred way of communication is through the written word, because it helps me be more mindful and not so venomous. And so anyways, I tried to have that boundary with my adopted brother, and he was all about his boundaries, and he didn't care that like I was trying to not be venomous. And it made me feel so unheard, unseen, unvalued. It also reminded me of like in my relationship with my dad, who is a pastor. um my dad knew that like I would try to communicate with him through the written word whenever I was really upset by something he did when we were going through what we went through in Colorado. And he would purposely try to confront me like in person or talk to me on the phone. And I hated that because like I couldn't put my words together in a way that was more centered and more peaceful, instead of like just stabbing him with like all my pain with my words, right? And so my brother, adopted brother, he did this to me as well, and it was just really, really infuriating because he wasn't hearing me. And then I just felt like I was undergoing the abuse of my dad and my other brothers again, which I tried to explain that to him too. And then he took that personal and tried to like guilt me and shame me, which is what they would do too. And then it was like what my therapist said, like she was like, well, are you going to be okay if he doesn't apologize? And I was like, I don't know, I guess maybe. And I realized at the time she was sensing what I hadn't actualized yet, which was he had too much pride and he wasn't going to apologize. So eventually, for fear of losing yet another person that I love, I settled for him not apologizing, us moving and seeing what happens. And that's basically where we are now. But it was like what I explained to him was um like I have no biological family to fall back on. And because of that, it's much easier for me to go into fight or flight and just peace out on the relationship. It's just easier for me. It spares me a lot of heartache. It spares me a lot of discomfort. Like it's just my natural instinct is to just run. And meanwhile, he has his mom and his younger brother and his sister in Africa to talk to if ever he has something going on. I don't have that. Like, I don't have a biological father, a biological mother to talk to. I don't have biological siblings to talk to. Um, my grandma that raised me, I can talk to her, but I can only talk to her about so much because we don't agree about a lot of things, and she shuts down on me if I talk too much about things that are true and authentic to me. So there's that. And then also with my husband, I had to be careful because when I'm working on matters of the heart around my family abandonment wounds, of course, his family mirrors a lot of stuff back to me. And so as I'm like self-actualizing and piecing things together, it can be really triggering for him. So even there, I kind of have to tread cautiously and speak mindfully. And sometimes it's really exhausting to speak mindfully, especially when no one taught you how to do it, right? Chances are if you were abandoned by your family, you didn't necessarily have the greatest role models and people teaching you healthy conditioning, healthy communication, or any of that. I at least know I didn't. And so then a couple months later, my soul sister and I had a disagreement, and it just activated that grief and that abandonment all over again. And it was around the holidays, and it just really got me thinking about self-made family. And she told me that that I was one of the people she needed space from. And it was like pretty much out of nowhere. It caught me off guard. I had sensed it after she went to a therapy session, but I was like, whatever, maybe it's me being insecure, or it's my disorganized attachment style, or my hypervigilance is acting up and making it out to be something that it's not. But like I could just sense there was like a disconnect, and I was like, whatever. And it started because we had been talking about politics, and I hate talking about politics. I hate it, hate it, hate it. And like I really keep my views to myself. I wouldn't even say I have political views. It's just other people would label it as political views because so many people talk about politics, and they need to be able to comprehend. So they have to have these labels to comprehend. So I wouldn't say I have political views. It's just my views on world affairs are different than others. And so yeah, we had a falling out on politics, and it was really, really hurtful to me because I like a week before she had told me she needed space from me, I had been very vulnerable with her about my views because I was trying to engage with her. And if I'm being honest with myself, it was even my Chiron, like maybe I was self-abandoning and abandoning a little bit, and I wasn't honoring my boundaries, which is I don't talk about political affairs with people. I just don't. Because people get so emotionally charged and reactive about those things. And so, because I guess there was that unconscious fear of my inner child, like thinking she would leave me if I didn't talk about what was going on with Palestine and Israel, that she would leave me. So I engaged with her and went across my own boundaries. And I did tell her that like she's like one of the only people I've ever bothered sharing like these views with. And that was me being very vulnerable, which is really, really difficult for someone with abandonment wounds to be vulnerable. I know at least for me it is. And so then when she said she needed space from me, um, I just felt so hurt because I had been vulnerable with her. I had also told her I don't talk about these things, and then she took time away from me, and then it was a great opportunity. During that time, it was Chiron retrograde, so it was a great opportunity for me to kind of go within and be like, why is this happening for me? I got that from Lee Harris. He's a wonderful channel. He said, start asking, why is this happening for me, not to me? So I was like, why is this happening for me? And I was like, oh, it's a whole new layer. And I realized that she was mirroring back to me my grandma, like my mom, who is highly political, and a Taurus, which my soul sister is too. And both of them are studied in psychology. Both of them are elder women to me. And with my grandma mom, like anytime I have differing views than her, what she does is she gets off the phone with me really quickly and like just won't engage with me whatsoever. And that is exactly what happened with my soul sibling, like basic, because we use WhatsApp all the time. And basically, she just got off WhatsApp because she didn't agree with my views. And it was really, really, really hurtful. It made me really feel like less than and inferior. And it just made me feel abandoned. It made me feel ashamed for being myself. It made me feel ashamed for thinking differently. And it made me just like, it just made me shame myself, and I had to do work around self-love and self-respect and self-acceptance to pull through that. But then it really had me questioning like self-made family. And again, because I'm just like, okay, like one of the things she had told me was she needed solidarity and to be surrounded by a lot of care. Um, as she took space from me, which was kind of like it made me feel blindsided, because I thought we were in solidarity because we had both talked about what was going on and like the type of activism that we each kind of resonated with. And I thought that we had just kind of agreed to disagree on like our approaches, but to like respect and honor one another's approaches at the same time because it was still contributing some type of input of love and activism into the collective and space holding into the collective around Palestine and Israel. And then when she said that, I was like, oh, okay, I guess we weren't in solidarity. And then she also had talked to me about community. And it's really interesting. Her and my adopted brother, they both come from different countries that are focused on community. And I come from the border, which is also focused on community because it's a very Hispanic populated area and it's very like matriarchal and like family. However, I don't know, it just seems like everybody looks at things through their cultural lenses and like maybe they don't see the nuances that are there. And so it really hurt me too when she said that like the solidarity bit and then like being surrounded by people that care, kind of implying like she wanted to be surrounded by community, but then it was like also taking away from like she had willingly stepped into the role of being like my elder sister all these years. And now because we have different views, we're not in solidarity and I guess we're not community to her. And that was really hard for me too. And it just made me like think about it. And like there's so many people that tell me how I'm so lucky to have self-made family. It's such a blessing to have self-made family. Like it's so cool how I can create self-made family. And it is, I'm not discounting that. However, when people say that, I feel like they discount my life experience as to why I even have to go there. Like at the end of the day, my self-made family, I can't speak for others, they have family to turn to. And they have either they have biological parents or they have biological siblings, and they have family to fall back on. They have family that is with them on the holidays. They have family that will go through the highs and lows of life with them. They have some type of security and safety with some connections in their family. And I just know this because I know my relationships with these people. I do not have that. I mean, even with my husband, like he chose his own biological family over me a few times in the beginning of our relationship and in the beginning of our marriage. And it took me a long time to trust him because of that, because it was really shocking to me. Because I thought, like, when you got married, that like you were supposed to have each other's back, and he didn't have my back. He had his family's back, and then I was kind of outcasted and shunned also. And so yeah, at the end of the day, like I don't have that biological web of support, that biological network. Like when the time comes for me to be a mother, there's not going to be any biological family with me in that chapter. There wasn't much biological family with me when I entered the chapter of getting married. My cousin was there, and I'm so grateful she was there. And I wish I had more time with her. We met a few years ago, and then she has ALS, so she's going to be leaving. Um, and so it's like I didn't have biological family really like beyond one person at my wedding, which really mattered to me that the one person was there. But then all of my husband's biological family was there, and they took over like our photography. And then it's like it was very obvious that I was being walked down the aisle by someone that was not my biological family. And I know like other people normally have biological family. And then like at the end of the day, like if I get into an argument with my self-made family, it's so easy for them to turn to their biological family for support or for like space. Meanwhile, I don't have that. And so I just want to bring this to attention to some people, like maybe before you say you're so lucky to have self-made family, maybe like reframe that and be like, wow, what an act of courage to create a self-made family. Like it's so beautiful that the universe magnetized these souls to you. What an act of courage to receive these souls and let them into your heart space, you know, because it does take courage to create a self-made family. It takes so much courage to let love in again. It takes so much courage to be vulnerable. It takes so much courage to communicate your heart and to be open and to communicate your needs to people that you're entrusting to fill these roles and these parts and these spaces in your psyche. And some people I don't think fully realize like the power they have, the impact they have, the influence they have in your life. Like I'm so grateful that my father that I adopted, that adopted me, like he does understand the gravity of the role that he plays in my life. He truly does. And I'm so grateful for that. But like I don't think a lot of my self-made family really does understand the gravity that they play in my life. And it's hard to communicate and have those conversations also. And I think it makes people feel good to be part of someone's self-made family in the sense that like the person that's been abandoned, for example, me, will self-abandon probably because they want to have love and they want to be loved and accepted so bad that they'll like pedestal these people and like they'll go above and beyond for them just so they can be loved and accepted, which can be seen as manipulative. And it is manipulative on a really subconscious level because you're trying to get these people to love you, right? Um, but it doesn't mean it necessarily is coming from a place of malice either. But then like the person, the one that's been abandoned will like pedestal these people and make them feel so good. And then these people maybe sometimes forget like that there's an accountability and a balance to it too. Like you can't just be there for the self-made family title and label. Like you got to have the hard conversations with the person that you're playing this role with, you know? And sometimes I think the people that say like you're so lucky to have a self-made family, I think they think of like their own family dynamics where like people beef with each other on the holidays, or like there's like family drama and tensions, and like, man, I wish I could just choose my family. And like that's totally valid too, but it's like sometimes we got to think about like think past our own projections and our own energy field and dysfunction, um and look at the bigger picture of like why this person had to create a self-made family in the first place if you know their story. And meanwhile, like you don't have to have like a background of like abandonment or something to create a self-made family. You could go create one just for the heck of it and make it like your extended family to the family you already have. And that's really cool and wonderful to be able to do that also. But again, I'm just speaking from like what resonates with me and what I've been introspecting on and what's been on my heart. And what's been kind of like weighing on me, which this past year, yeah, it was these really hard, difficult conversations with siblings. And for me, it's so easy to just be like, like if you're gonna permanently leave, just leave me. Like I don't want to beat around the bush. And that's the other thing is like I really pride myself on being excellent with communication, and some people see that as me being aggressive, and really it's just me being direct or assertive. And I'm a woman, so some people are like, oh, like she's aggressive and she's a bitch and she shouldn't talk that way, just because they're not used to having direct communication. um, and then they take it as a challenge, or it makes them feel inferior, and like so on and so forth, which I did have to correct my adopted brother on that, because he kept saying, you need to be careful what you say, you need to watch your mouth, blah blah blah. And I was like you can't be talking to me like that, because I was like, it makes me feel like you're gonna beat me or something. Like it feels like something like a man would say to a woman that he didn't like because she put him in his place and he felt inferior, and now he's gonna take it out on her. Which I will say my brother did stop saying that, but like I don't know, our society is just like so toxic on like a universal level that direct communication, especially from a woman, is not always well received. And even woman to woman, it's not always well received, because we have like the collective sister wound of women being against each other because that's what men have taught us to do. Um, so yeah, anyways, that's my tit talk. That's my ponderings and sharings and musings and reflection and processing around self-made family. Um, Hopefully this helps somebody. Maybe it clicked a few things into place for you. Maybe it highlighted a few things where you know someone and you're part of their self-made family. Maybe you're like, I should step up and have these conversations a little more. Maybe I should engage with them and ask them about their heart and who I am to them. Like that's something that I had to ask myself, and then ask of my self-made family, like who am I to you? Who are you to me? Um, like what is community to you? What is family to you? Um, do you know what my definition of community is? Do you know what my definition of family is? Like that way there's not miscommunication either. Like if you ask questions, curiosity brings in clarity, and it helps neutralize reactivity, because when you engage, you illuminate, and when you illuminate, it makes it easier to see the bigger picture. I think that's everything I got. Thanks for listening, and I will be back with more Tit Talk episodes as I go through life and process and navigate. And please share in the comments what this brings up for you, or um, just share uh, insights, questions, resources, whatever you want in the comments. Please share. I look forward to reading them. Thank you so much. Bye.